grinding maze. It was an ordinary day. But something was coming, something dark. In this quiet village, there lived a young girl named Bukunmi. She was just 16. She had no mother, no father. They both died when she was little. Bukunmi lived with her aunt, who treated her like a stranger. She slept on a mat near the kitchen and ate only when food was left. But Bukunmi had a gift. She could find healing herbs in the forest. She could sing songs that made sad people smile. The children followed her around and called her Angel. With bare feet still, the villagers whispered about her. Not because she was poor, but because of the strange birthmark on her back. It looked like a flame. Some said it was a sign of blessing. Others said it was a curse. One night something strange happened. A baby from the chief's family fell very sick. No one knew why. The child's eyes turned red. The air felt heavy. The elders gathered. They spoke in low voices and burned incense. People were scared. Then one old woman pointed at Bukunmi and said, "She is the reason. The girl with the fire mark. She brought this evil." Gasps filled the air. Everyone turned. To look at Bukunmi, she didn't understand. But in that moment, her life began to burn. The morning was quiet, too quiet. The birds did not sing. The drums did not beat. Only the sound of angry voices filled the air. Bukunmi stood in the village square, her hands tied with rope. Her legs were shaking, but her eyes were dry. The people. She once helped the ones she gave herbs to, now stood with stones in their hands. She is a witch. Someone shouted. She caused the baby's sickness. Another cried. The elders did not ask questions. They did not wait for the truth. They believed fear more than they believed facts. An old blind woman in the crowd whispered, "Fire does not kill the innocent. Let the flames speak." The villagers tied dry sticks around Bukunmi. They poured oil on her feet. The chief looked away as someone brought fire close, and then the flames rose. Bukunmi did not scream. She did not cry. Her voice was calm. Her heart was broken. She whispered, "I did nothing wrong." Suddenly, the sky turned black. Thunder roared. Rain poured like the heavens were weeping. The fire went out. Smoke filled the air. When it cleared, Bukunmi was still alive, burned, but breathing. The people fell back in fear. Some said she was a spirit. Others ran. But deep in the forest, a hand reached out and pulled her from the ground. It was a healer woman, old and wise. "Child," she said, "the fire has chosen you. Your pain will become your power." And so Bukunmi's real journey began. The fire did not kill her. The storm did not leave her. But something inside Bukunmi had changed. She was no longer the quiet girl who begged for love. She was the girl who walked out of fire and lived. The old healer woman took Bukunmi deep into the forest. Her name was Mama Ireti, and she lived alone in a small mud hut with herbs hanging from the roof. She cleaned Bukunmi's wounds with leaves and clay. Her hands were soft, but her voice was strong. "You are not a witch," Mama Ireti said. "You are something greater." Bukunmi stayed with her for many weeks. Every day she learned new things: how to mix herbs, how to hear the trees, how to speak to the wind. Mama Ireti taught her about the ancient spirits and the secret of her birthmark. "This mark," she said, touching the skin on Bukunmi's back, "belongs to a bloodline of protectors. Your mother had it, and now it lives in you." Bukunmi was shocked. She had always thought she was just a poor girl with nothing. But now she learned that her mother was once the village healer, the true one, before jealous people lied and drove her away. Bukunmi's heart burned again, not with fire, but with purpose. She wanted to return, not for revenge, but for truth. The village had called her evil. Now she would return as their only hope. The fire they used to destroy her, Kui, would become the fire that saves them. The same village that burned her was now burning in pain. But this fire was different. It came from a sickness no one could stop, and the only person who could save them was the girl they had once left to die. The sun refused to shine over Ottawa. People were coughing, children were weak, flies filled the air. A strange sickness had come to the village. First, one family, then two, then many. No herbs worked. No elder could help. The villagers were scared. The chief's daughter was the worst. She had boils on her skin and could not speak. Her mother cried every night. The people said, "The gods are punishing us." Some remembered Bukunmi, the girl with the fire mark. But most stayed silent. Pride is a heavy thing, far in the forest. Bukuni felt the wind change. Mama Iredi came to her and said, "The village needs you, but they may still hate you. Will you go?" She packed her herbs and walked toward the village. When she reached the village, gate children screamed and ran. Women dropped their pots. The chief's guards pointed their spears, but Bukunmi stood tall, her scars still fresh, her eyes full of truth. "I came to heal," she said, "not to harm." They stared in silence, and in that silence, hope was born again. The girl they burned was back, and she was no longer weak. She was Bukunmi, the girl who walked through fire. The village of Ottawa stood still. No one moved. No one spoke. The air was thick with shame. The same people who once shouted witch now watched the girl they tried to kill walk into their sick land. Bukuni's feet touched the same ground where she was tied and burned, but this time she did not cry. Her head was high, and her hands held a small bag of healing herbs. She walked straight to the chief's house. The chief's wife fell on her knees. "Please, my daughter is dying," she wept. "Help us, forgive us." Bukumi looked at the child. Her eyes were red, her lips dry, her breath slow. Bukumi said nothing. She took out her herbs, mixed them with water, and began to work. She placed a warm leaf on the girl's chest and whispered, "Let life return." The villagers watched. Some still feared her, but most now saw her in a new way, not as a curse, but a blessing. By morning, the child opened her eyes. She sat up and called for her mother. The village shouted in joy. Tears fell. Even the chief bowed his head. He stood before Bukunmi and said, "We judged you too fast. We failed you. Today, we call you not witch, but healer." Bukunmi did not smile, but her heart was full. She did not return for revenge. She came with love, and her love had saved them all. She was no longer just a poor girl. She was the healer they once burned. Bukunmi sat under the big tree where the elders used to judge people. This time, they all sat around her. The chief, the women, the children, everyone was listening. They wanted to know the truth. They wanted to understand who Bukunmi really, while she stood up and spoke in a clear voice. "You all feared my birthmark," she said. "You thought it was a curse, but it is not. It is a gift." People looked at one another. They were quiet. Even the birds stopped singing. "My mother was the healer before me," Bukunmi said. "She saved lives, but people grew jealous. They called her a witch too. She ran into the forest and died in pain. But before she died, she passed her gift in to me." It's the old blind woman from the crowd stood up slowly. Her name was Iya Oyu. Her voice shook. "I knew your mother," she said. "She helped my son live. You made a mistake, child. We judged you too fast, just like we judged her." Bukunmi looked at her hands. They were no longer weak. They were hands of power. "The fire did not burn me," she said. "It made me stronger. Your hate did not kill me. It woke me up." Tears filled the chief's eyes. "What do we call you now?" he asked. Bukunmi smiled for the first time. "Call me what I am," she said. "The girl who walked through fire and returned with healing." The crowd stood and clapped. Her story had only begun. That night, Bukunmi could not sleep. The village was quiet, but her heart was full of questions. She walked alone to the big river outside Odo. The moon was bright, and the water sparkled like silver. She sat near the river and closed her eyes. Suddenly a soft voice called her name, Bukunme. She opened her eyes fast, but no one was there. Then the water moved. A spirit rose from the river. It looked like a woman tall, glowing, with fire in her eyes and love on her face. "Who are you?" Bukunmi asked, shaking. The spirit smiled. "I am your mother's spirit," she said. "You carry my fire. You carry my healing. But your journey is not yet finished." Bukuni's eyes filled with tears. "I was afraid," she said. "I was almost killed." The spirit nodded. "Yes, but pain made you strong. The people now see you, but many still hide their wicked hearts." Bukunimi stood. "Oh, what must I do?" The spirit stepped closer. "You must protect the land. You must speak for the silent. You must be the fire that burns lies and the water that brings healing." Then the spirit faded into mist and returned to the river. Bukunmi stood alone again. But this time she was not afraid. She looked at the sky and whispered, "I understand now." From that moment, Bukunimi was no longer just a healer. She was a voice, a flame, a chosen one with fire in her soul. Bukunimi became loved in the village. Every sick person ran to her. Every baby touched her hands. Even the elders came to her for advice. The people now called her the fire healer. But not everyone was happy. Far away in the next village lived a man named Ogundel. He once wanted to be the great healer of Odo, but the people had laughed at him. Now they praised Bukunmi. His heart turned dark with jealousy. "She is just a girl," he said. They forgot she was once called a witch. Ogundel came to the village, smiling with fake kindness. He brought herbs, spoke sweet words, and told the chief, "Let me help Bukunmi. I have stronger medicine." At first, people listened. He wore long robes and spoke like a wise man. But Bukunmi saw through him. One day she found him mixing bad roots into the village water. "Why are you doing this?" she asked. He laughed. "You stole their hearts. Now I'll make them fear you." Again, but Bukunmi was ready. She called the whole village and showed them what Ogundel had done. They saw the poison in the pot. They saw his true face. The villagers chased him out with sticks and stones. That night, the chief said, "Bukunmi, you saved us again. Your heart is pure." She smiled. But deep inside, she knew more battles would come. She had survived the fire. But now, she must learn to stand strong in the storm. The sun rose gently over Odoe. The birds sang again. The village had peace. The sick were healed. Children played without fear. All because of Bukuni, the girl they once called a curse. One morning, the village elders gathered. The chief stood up and said, "We once gave power to the wrong hands. We followed fear. Now we follow truth." He looked at Bukuni. "We want to give you something we never gave your mother. A place among the elders." The crowd clapped, but Bukunme looked down. She remembered the fire. She remembered the rope, the screams, the pain. She walked slowly to the center of the village. She spoke with a calm but strong voice. "I do not want your gold," she said. "I do not want your power. What I want is justice. What I want is peace. I want no child to ever be tied and burned again." The people became quiet. Some cried, then the old blind woman came forward. She held something in her hands, a small crown made from burnt wood and black cloth. "This," she said, "is your crown, a crown of ashes. You were once fire. Now you are light." They placed it on Bukunmi's head. The drums beat. The people danced. Bukunmi stood tall, not as a queen with gold, but as a healer with scars. She wore no jewels, only strength. The day she became more than a girl. She became a symbol of pain turned to power. Years passed, but the story of Bukunmi never faded. Children sat under trees to hear her name. Mothers spoke of her strength. Elders used her story to teach truth. Bukunmi was no longer just a girl. She became a queen of hearts, though she had no throne. She walked in simple clothes. She still helped the sick. But her words now carried power. One day, a young girl from another village came crying, for people had tied her, calling her a witch. She escaped through the forest and begged for help. Bukunmi looked into her eyes and saw herself the same fear, the same pain. She stood before the villagers and said, "If you burn this girl, you burn the future." Did my fire not teach you anything? The people dropped their heads. They freed the girl. They bowed to Bukunmi. From that day, a new law was made. No one could be burned again without truth. No one could be judged by fear. Bukunmi's voice became law. Her pain became a path for others. She often walked to the fireground, now covered with flowers. She smiled and said, "They tried to kill me with fire, but fire made me rise." So the girl once hated became a queen made of flames, love, and healing. She was proof that even ashes can bloom. She was the fire that refused to die.